the author of Clinical Intelligence, a book that is about point-of-care testing protocols and public health facts for primary healthcare professionals. And they have 10 years experience in community-based healthcare services. I'm a community health consultant, a researcher, and of course, an entrepreneur. So what am I sharing today? Trends in economic, community pharmacy, and consumer behavior. And as we see, I'm going to share insights into these three, not in the regular way of just bombarding you with figures, but in a way that we show that, of course, I am personally immersed in all these things. Then I'll move on to 5 tested ways to grow your pharmacy income. Then we move on to the conclusion. So those are what we have basically. Now, what are the trends in the Nigerian economy? I have 6 points. The first is underfunded health sector. That is no longer a news. It's no longer news. We all know that. The WHO Africa, there's a policy document that encourages every president, every country to budget to make healthcare no less than 15%, if I'm right, of their budgetary allocation. And I think up till now, the health sector barely has 5%. So we still have a long way to go. Then secondly, the newly assented National Health Insurance Act, that's on the policy, or should we say legal framework. It's a new bill. I've not personally gone through the whole law because it's not a law. The president has assented it, but it is meant to increase the rates at which we achieve universal health coverage. This is something that has been of interest to community pharmacists across the nation, especially the professional bodies have been, at the forefront of advocacy for the inclusion of pharmacists in the health insurance scheme. But how much difference this bill will make, we are not yet sure. Now, the third is inflation. Inflation is currently at over 17%. That is huge. That is huge. And of course, inflation is a general global trend, but for Nigeria or poor African nations, the impact has been more than developed economies. Our population continues to expand. I think we are still growing at about 3% year on year. So, and of course, that is also increasing demand for healthcare. We have a lot of young populations and all of that. Then there are new threats to public health. The impact of COVID-19 stays there. Monkeypox is currently making wave, and resurgence of some kind of diseases that we should have, made history. So these are economic trends. Just to lay background for my topic. Then for community pharmacy today, I won't be focusing so much on the industry size and the prospects and all of that. Of course, the pharma industry has been growing and is projected to still grow further into the future. But what are the key issues? One for me is the elastic drug demand. Before, drug demand used to be inelastic. What does that mean? In economics, there is this elastic demand, inelastic demand. Now, demand for medications was inelastic, absolutely. Pharma companies can even predict their sales, whether, dollar falls or rises, whether people became poorer or richer. There is a constant demand for medications. But in recent times, there has been this change in demand pattern for medications. Companies will tell you, okay, for instance, there are tertiary institutions, a lot of them are owing pharmaceutical companies. Some have not paid for months. And so that somehow affects demand for drugs. People have been changing their behaviors in terms of purchase of medications. People are poorer than ever before. Even there are lecturers today who cannot afford to buy their BP medications and all of that. So that is affecting demand for drugs. Old profession, new enthusiasm. So we see this new enthusiasm. So I'm talking about community pharmacy precisely. It's an old profession, of course, but there's new enthusiasm. A lot of people want to do pharmacy. A lot of people want to open pharmaceutical outlets. So that's also a trend. And we can say the number of pharmacies in Southwest Nigeria has more than doubled, in the last 10 years. Through this reprofessionalization of community pharmacy, the new graduates, they are looking for a more interesting role to play in retail pharmacy. They are looking for patient-facing roles. And of course, pharmacists are also advocating for, the way we met community pharmacy, it wasn't so particularly interesting. But today, just less than 10 years that some of us have started, we are seeing the profession taking shape in a positive direction. But then that leads us to number 4. What about our identity, old versus new skills? Who are we? We are yet to fully define that. And so a lot of people do not know whether to stick with the old pattern or whether the new skills and the new roles being given pharmacists would actually further polish the image of the profession or probably make the profession lose its identity. So we're still grappling with that. And of course, pharmacy remains the bride of so many grooms. A lot of people want to have something to do with community pharmacy. Then there's a territorial aggression. This has been well discussed, especially in Western literature, where one of the key authors that were published in a top journal, I think Social Science and Medicine, had titled this paper are we reprofessionalizing pharmacy or we are doing professional imperialism? We use that terminology. So this task shifting and all of that, even being encouraged by the Ministry of Health, it's making other professionals that play in the same primary care space to feel whether their roles are being threatened or whether pharmacists are going to take over their duties. Then the last one on trends is the consumer behavior. How is the consumer behaving differently to the previous year? So we have questioning, people are raising more questions about their medications, about their health, education. Percentage of educated population has also increased and it will continue to increase. Not just because more people are going to school, but because of information and communication technology, social media, where people have been enlightened, and that leads us to infodemia. So many information, little time to process them is a problem of today's consumer. The consumerism, the idea of consumerism is such that the same principles apply to FMCG products, the real markets where consumers have rights, where consumers demand speed, where consumers demand better experience. That is also being carried over into the health-seeking behavior. They want the pharmacists to serve them in a certain way. People demand faster services and all of these things. So these is a key aspect of trends in consumer behavior. Of course, antibiotic resistance also, people not getting well using the same dose of antibiotics they used to use, or even the same dosage of anti-malarials. I talk a lot about these things on my Facebook wall, where I enlighten people. So this is also one of those things that consumer, one of the behaviors, one of those things influencing consumer behavior. Do they trust medications? Do they trust the judgment of the pharmacist when you give them medications and they do not recover or they do not fully recover? Of course, the next one is health tech marketing. One of the things that Nigerian pharmacists do not realize is that today their competition is no longer the guy 200 meters away. Many of our premium patients, who will buy imported supplements and all of these things, are being serviced today through telemedicine by American clinics, by American healthcare providers, and they are shipping medicines to Nigeria. This is a fact. And there is no regulation that could stop that. There's no law that says you can't bring in your own medications for personal use, but this is something for pharmacists to look at. Then also, the consumer is solution-oriented over product. This is becoming more and more of the trend. So no matter how much we scream about maybe people selling herbs or quacks and all of these things, as long as people feel they solve their problems, they continue to patronize them. So let's keep these trends in mind. So I've covered the, just to do a short recap on that, I've covered the economic trends, okay? I've covered the pharmacy, community pharmacy trend, and I've covered the consumer behavior. So the sum is the consumer is looking for solution, the consumer is raising questions, the economy is down, inflation is high, and the pharmacy profession also is undergoing changes. So all this, you have them in mind. So let's look at how pharmacists today can increase their revenue